Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan says India has been invited to initiate review and reconsideration proceedings in Indian spy Kulbhushan Jadhav's case. Jadhav was a serving Indian RAW officer when Pakistani forces arrested him in 2016.
At a press conference, Pakistan Foreign Office's Director General South Asia and SAARC, Zahid Hafiz, said India must not politicize Jadhav's case. He said Islamabad has asked New Delhi to cooperate with Pakistan and respects judicial process in the case. Hafiz said Pakistan implemented the decision of the International Court of Justice by twice granting consular access to Jadhav. Additional Attorney General Ahmad Irfan said New Delhi requested that an Indian lawyer should be allowed to represent Jadhav for a new petition, but he said only a Pakistani lawyer with a license to appear before courts could represent the naval officer. He, however, said a legal team from India could come and assist the Pakistani lawyer for the case. Pakistan promulgated review and reconsideration ordinance on May 20th, allowing for the filing of a review petition within 60 days. In 2017, the serving Indian naval commander and intelligence agency RAW operative confessed to espionage and acts of plotting and facilitating terrorism in Pakistan after his arrest in the country.
For more on this, we have contacted General Naeem Khalid Lodi, retired. Thank you for your time at Indus News. General, the Indian Army serving spy agency operative and naval commander Kulbhushan Jadhav was caught red-handed, but Pakistan followed all the domestic and international legal due process. How would you react to India's politicization of the issue?
I think they are unnecessarily trying to politicize it and trying to insert other angles in it. We have exactly gone according to the verdict of International Court of Justice. They said that we should give them consular access. We have given it twice. They said that he should be given a right of appeal. That has been given. In fact, a special ordinance was promulgated to accommodate that thing. The only sticking point is that they are saying that a group of Indian lawyers will come and plead his case. That is not possible because in Pakistani courts, only those lawyers can come who hold the Pakistani license to appear in the courts. And Pakistan has also said that yes, your people can come and assist that lawyer, whosoever will represent his case. But I think it is just an intransigence on their part that they are trying to pull and push the things in other directions. Actually, they want to save the life of a person who has accepted everything, and everybody knows it, and the world is convinced, we are convinced that he was a proper spy, spying for, and a person in uniform. So he actually is likely to get death sentence, and they are trying to, their best just to prolong it and just to politicize it and all that. But I think we are going according to the law and whatever instruction the International Court of Justice has given.
So, General Lodi, despite Jadhav's refusal to file a review petition, Pakistan has invited New Delhi to initiate a review and reconsideration proceedings. What do you believe could be the reason behind Jadhav's refusal?
As far as I think he's you can say a little disappointed with what the government of India is doing, because he had done, according to him, it appears from his body language also, that he thought that he has rendered immense services to his country, and he definitely deserved much better treatment as far as their government is concerned. They have nearly abandoned him. Of course, they went to international court and all that, but whatever the follow-up actions are required, they're not taking any interest in that. And that could be one reason that this man is totally disappointed and he doesn't want to take part in any proceedings hereafter.
So how do you believe Islamabad's extra efforts to ensure justice to a spy who confessed heinous crimes against Pakistan should be received in the international community?
I think Pakistan can ask, on the sidelines of International Court of Justice that this is what has happened. They should give a complete review of all the events that took place after the verdict was given. They should tell them that twice the consular access was given. They should tell them that we are offering them, the services of lawyers, and we should also tell them that we have also asked the Indians they can send their team to assist that lawyer. And that Jadhav has not submitted a review petition. All these things should be brought in the notice of international court, and then we should proceed according to our own law.
Thank you for your time, General Lodi. We really appreciate that. Now, moving on, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has asked world leaders to brainstorm together for ways to provide relief to unemployed laborers worldwide. Speaking at the International Labour Organization's virtual global summit on COVID-19 and the world of work, Khan said the pandemic has jeopardized survival of the already vulnerable laborers. The Prime Minister said Pakistan understood it could not lock down entire economy as it would starve workers to death, which is why Khan said he came up with a strategy of smart lockdowns, all while keeping livelihoods of the daily wages and laborers afloat. The Prime Minister praised the ILO for the timely, crucial initiative. In Afghanistan, at least 7 security officials have been killed and 20 others wounded in 2 separate attacks claimed by the Taliban. The first attack was a suicide car bombing in the southern Kandahar province, which killed 3 policemen and wounded 20 others. In the second attack, 4 policemen were killed in a landmine blast in Ghazni province. Police chief of Ghazni's Yak district was also among the killed. Earlier this week, President Ashraf Ghani warned that continued attacks by the Taliban pose serious challenges to the peace process. Now, a complete shutdown is being observed in occupied Kashmir to mark the 4th martyrdom anniversary of the freedom fighter Burhan Wani. In a statement, Hurriyat leaders paid a rich tribute to the martyred leader. They say Wani symbolizes the unrelenting resistance of Kashmiri people who are waging a struggle for the right to self-determination. This report has the details.
Indian-occupied Kashmir, one of the most militarized places on earth, has been the scene of worst violence over the past 73 years. It has seen many who raise voices against India's illegal occupation killed or terrorized at the hands of security forces. And Burhan Muzaffar Wani is at the top of the list. He had become an icon for Kashmiri youth through his social media warfare against occupying forces. Fearing him as a direct threat to India's illegitimate rule over Kashmir, New Delhi imposed a bounty of over $20,000 on his head in August 2015. 4 years ago, Indian forces martyred Wani along with his 2 friends in an operation in the Bamdura village. Large crowds from across occupied Jammu and Kashmir came out to mourn his death. His death led to a wave of protests during which hundreds of people were brutally killed by Indian forces. Over 12,000 Kashmiris were arrested in the next 2 months to snub the protests. Indian atrocities in Kashmir have once again intensified since New Delhi stripped the region of its autonomy in August last year. 192 people have been martyred and another 1,300 wounded during the 11-month-long siege of the valley.
Politicians, civil society members and Hurriyat leaders gathered in Islamabad to mark the 4th martyrdom anniversary of Kashmiri freedom fighter Burhan Wani. Paying rich tributes to the slain freedom fighter, they drew world's attention to the ongoing Indian brutalities in the occupied valley. More in this report by our correspondent Manahil Ahmed.
The seminar was held to highlight the plight of Kashmiris and their systematic genocide at the hands of Indian occupation troops. All parties Hurriyat conference leader Syed Faiz Naqshbandi said Indian forces have been committing human rights violations for the past 7 decades.
We are fighting 900,000 Indian troops which are stationed in the Indian occupied Kashmir, and this is the highest army concentration anywhere in the world.
Pakistani lawmaker Shahryar Afridi said Indian actions in Kashmir could lead to a major conflict that would have consequences for the region and beyond.
At this particular juncture, the world has now need to realize that apart from humanity, that nuclear deterrence, which not only Pakistan and India, but if we include Russia, 50% of the world population more or less is then a part of this particular area. So the whole globe peace is at stake.
The seminar urged the international community to fulfill their commitments and help Kashmiri people get their right to self-determination. Reporting for Indus News, Manahil Ahmed, Islamabad.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 83 more people have died of COVID-19 overnight, raising the toll to nearly 5,000. The Health Ministry says nearly 3,000 cases were detected in the last 24 hours, taking the tally to over 237,000. The ministry said nearly 141,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. It said over 2,000 patients remain critical. The southern province of Sindh is badly hit by the virus with nearly 98,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 83,000 cases. The US has recorded 60,209 cases in the past 24 hours, taking the toll to nearly 3 million with over 131,000 deaths. In the virus epicenter, Latin America, Brazil has registered over 1,250 deaths overnight, while almost 900 lost their lives to the disease in Mexico in a day. The deadly virus has so far killed over 543,000 people and has infected 11.7 million others. This report has more.
Just when the world thought it had seen off the peak of COVID-19, the pandemic has relapsed, forcing countries to roll back their plans to return to normalcy. Outbreak is most aggressive in the Americas, where the US is registering one record spike in cases after another. While Brazil and Mexico continue to be the worst hit nations in Latin America, the virus is now spreading fast in countries like Peru and Argentina.
It's a little more in the suburbs than in the city of Buenos Aires. We thought that this would saturate the system. You have to remember that these are patients in a grave condition. They don't just stay 2 or 3 days in therapy. They're prolonged hospital stays for 2 or 3 weeks.
In the African continent, the situation is getting equally worse, with South Africa reporting over 10,000 cases every day. Nigeria and Ghana too are struggling to contain the spread despite restrictive measures. After declaring victory over the virus, health authorities in 7 Arab countries have now confirmed new cases and deaths. Over in Australia, New South Wales has banned citizens from its bordering regions with Victoria State.
Can I say an important reminder for all of us that we have to get past this public health bushfire and get back into a position where we can start to open up again and start to repair the very significant economic damage that has been done. And that won't be a quick process in any part of the country.
In Asia, South Korea's daily new virus cases have bounced back to above 60. Meanwhile, China has reported 7 new cases yet again around Beijing, following a day when no new cases were found.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has urged the UN Security Council to extend an arms embargo on Iran to prevent further conflict in the region. In a news conference, Pompeo said no serious person can possibly believe Tehran will use any weapon it receives for peaceful ends. He said the U.S. and partner forces last month seized a vessel carrying arms to Houthi rebels in Yemen. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has long argued that the arms embargo on Iran should not be lifted. Since Trump took office in 2017, his administration has quit the nuclear deal and steadily ramped up sanctions on Iran. But Iran has repeatedly warned against U.S.-led efforts to extend the embargo, which is set to expire in October. Moving on, China says it is ready to join arms control talks with the US and Russia if Washington agrees to reduce its nuclear arsenal to Beijing's level. China's Foreign Ministry Chief for Arms Control, Fu Kong, said Beijing will join the dialogue, but it knows Washington will not agree to the measure. Talking to reporters, Fu asserted the US asking China for participation in talks is nothing but an excuse to walk away from the treaty extension. He said the real purpose is to get rid of all restrictions and have a free hand in seeking military superiority over an adversary. The New START is the only arms control treaty between Russia and the US, which expires in February. Moscow wants to extend the pact by another 5 years, but Washington has been advocating a trilateral arms control deal with both Moscow and Beijing. In the past, Beijing has refused to discuss the New START, arguing it has only a fraction of nukes wielded by the US and Russia. Russia and China have vetoed the UN Security Council resolution for extending the cross-border humanitarian aid in Syria for a year. Diplomats said the other 13 members of the council voted to approve the draft. The resolution would have allowed aid to continue to pass through 2 points on the Turkish border without interference from Damascus. Diplomats said Syrian allies Russia and China only want to approve one Turkish crossing for aid access for 6 months. A Russian envoy to the UN, Vasilina Benzia, said there were flaws in the German and Belgian proposed draft.
To continue cross-border in Northwest, and for that purpose we tried to explain how we see it continue. It didn't work out in the resolution that was not adopted, but we introduced our own text, which we circulated recently.
The more than 6-year-long aid operation is currently authorized until Friday. Now, moving on, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has accused the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon, Dorothy Shea, of acting like a military ruler and inciting sectarian strife. In a televised address, Nasrallah said Shea is inciting Lebanese officials against Hezbollah and pushing Beirut towards internal strife and a civil war. He accused the U.S. embassy of attempting to starve Lebanon, prevent investment in the country, and scare off foreign investments. The Hezbollah leader called on Lebanese to rise up and defend the country against Shia's actions. Shia was embroiled in a diplomatic spat after a Lebanese judge banned media outlets from interviewing the U.S. ambassador to Beirut. Moving on to Serbia, where clashes between protesters and police have erupted after thousands of opposition supporters stormed the parliament building in the capital, Belgrade. This report has the details.
The demonstrators were protesting against a lockdown plan for the capital this weekend to halt the coronavirus spread. They attempted to force their way into the building as security forces set up a cordon in front of its entrance. The demonstrators lit flares and threw stones at police officials and chanted for President Aleksandar Vučić to resign. The police used tear gas and mace spray to disperse the demonstrators. This comes after President Vučić said stricter measures, including the lockdown for Belgrade, would be introduced because of surging coronavirus infections. Opponents blamed the outbreak on the government and said people should not pay the price for another lockdown.
A UN court head says the Bosnian Serb government is indoctrinating children with denials of the 1995 genocide in Srebrenica. In an interview, Judge Karim Egias said the Bosnian Serb authorities are doing a humongous effort to indoctrinate with their own version of the events. Egias said they had indicted 20 persons for the events happened in Srebrenica. He said the younger generation is abandoning their country in large numbers as they do not want to know any such versions. Egias said reconciling with the past is the only way to move forward. The 1992 Bosnian War claimed roughly 100,000 lives and left Bosnia deeply divided along ethnic lines, joined by a weak central government. Well, 3 people have died and 24 were injured in a head-on collision between 2 trains in northwest Czech Republic near the border with Germany. In a statement, an emergency services spokesman said helicopters and 5 brigades are taking part in the rescue operation. Railway officials said an investigation has been launched to ascertain the cause behind the incident. Local media said some passengers sustained serious injuries. Turkey and Italy have agreed on the need for a political solution to the Libya's conflict. In Ankara, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar and his Italian counterpart Lorenzo Gireni discussed the regional developments. Akar said Ankara share common and similar views with Rome on several issues. He said security and defense cooperation between the 2 countries will benefit the Mediterranean region. Gireni said all the parties need to work together to achieve stability in the Mediterranean. Relations between some NATO members have soured over Libya as Turkey has accused France of backing Khalifa Haftar's forces. The European Union recognizes the GNA, but there are also differences between the member states. Pope Francis has slammed migrant detention centers in Libya and compared them to concentration camps. During a mass, Pope said the world was being given only a diluted version of how terrible life really is for the people living there. Pope Francis has previously called for the camps to be closed. He has made defense of migrants a major part of his 7-year-old papacy. Pope added that one cannot imagine the hell the people are facing in those detention camps. He said all these migrants had was hope as they were crossing the sea. According to the UN, thousands of refugees and migrants are held in about 20 official detention facilities in Libya. China says it will impose visa restrictions on US citizens who have engaged in what it called egregious behavior over Tibet. Talking to media, Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said Washington should stop going further down the wrong path to avoid harming China-US relations. Zhao said Beijing will not allow foreign interference in Tibetan affairs. He said China implements some protective measures on visitors due to Tibet's geography and climate. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Washington will restrict visas for some Chinese officials as Beijing obstructs Americans' travel to Tibet. In a statement, Pompeo said Washington remains committed to supporting autonomy of Tibetans and their fundamental human rights. China has opened its National Security Office in Hong Kong. The office will oversee the Hong Kong's government's enforcement of the new national security legislation that Beijing adopted last week. Under the newly imposed law's mandate, the office will analyze and propose major strategies related to security in the territory. The office will also handle cases on offenses endangering national security based on the intelligence it will collect. At the opening ceremony, Chief of the Security Office, Zhang Jianshong, said he will enforce the law without infringing on the legitimate rights of any individual. Hong Kong's Chief Executive, Carrie Lam, said the law was conducive to the region's stability and for the sustained development of one country, 2 systems.
The law clearly stipulates that it aims at preventing, curbing, and punishing 4 types of acts endangering national security, which are clearly defined in the law. It targets only an extremely small number of lawbreakers and protects the legitimate freedom and rights of the vast majority of Hong Kong residents.
China says the U.S. holds the key to breaking the stalemate on the Korean peninsula. Beijing's foreign ministry statement comes amid renewed tensions as Pyongyang refuses to return to denuclearization talks with Washington. In a news briefing, foreign ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said the U.S. can break the current deadlock. He said Washington must show sincerity and take concrete actions to respond to North Korea's reasonable concerns. Earlier, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Stephen Biegun rejected reports that he was seeking to meet North Korean officials during a visit to South Korea this week. Last week, North Korea said it did not feel the need for a new summit. South Korean President Moon Jae-in has suggested the 2 leaders meet again before the U.S. elections in November. The Amnesty International says new evidence show Myanmar military killed civilians in indiscriminate air strikes that amount to war crimes. The right groups reiterated its call for the UN Security Council to refer the alleged war crimes probe to the International Criminal Court. In a report, Amnesty International said air attacks were launched amid worsening conflict in the country's western Rakhine and Chin states. It said Tatmadaw bombed several villages in Chin state in March and April, killing more than a dozen people. It says the attacks were carried out by the Arakan Army, an armed group seeking greater autonomy for the Buddhist Rakhine people. Rakhine is also home to the Muslim Rohingya and borders Chin state, whose people are mostly Christian. The death toll from the protests and ethnic violence that erupted in Ethiopia last week has risen to 239. The murder of a popular singer from the Oromo ethnic group ignited the demonstrations. Officials have attributed the deaths to a combination of lethal force by security officers and inter-ethnic violence. Acting Oromia Police Commissioner said 9 police officers, 5 militia members and 215 civilians have lost their lives in the unrest. On June 29th, pop star Hachalu Hundessa was shot dead by unknown attackers. The killing heightened ethnic tensions, threatening the country's democratic transition. Protests broke out in Addis Ababa as well as the surrounding Oromia region, which is home to the country's largest ethnic group. US-based Human Rights Watch says 180 bodies have been found in mass graves in Burkina Faso's Djibu town. It said the available evidence suggests government forces were involved in mass extrajudicial executions. The watchdog said the majority of the victims were ethnic Fulani or Pule men. The Burkina Faso government has told HRW that it will investigate the claims. Burkina Faso has been battling armed groups with links to Al-Qaeda and ISIS since 2017. Hundreds of civilians have been killed and almost 1 million displaced by the conflict. The death toll from the fuel truck explosion in northern Colombia has risen to 11. 52 others were injured in the incident. Officials said a crowd gathered around the overturned tanker to fill up the fuel when the vehicle burst into flames. The tanker, carrying 5,000 gallons of oil, lost control on the road east of Barranquilla near the town of Pueblo Viejo. Police said residents carrying plastic containers from the nearby town had gathered to extract oil from the tank warnings. But Barranquilla's Secretary of Health Rescue, Humberto Mendeza, says some of the victims have severe burns and death toll may rise further.
The injuries are burns of more than 30% of the body surface, exactly between 40 and 99% of the body surface. This generates a reserved prognosis. The injuries are very serious and generate a risk of acute kidney.
Authorities say 6 people are still missing since the explosion. Now moving on, the White House has officially moved to withdraw the United States from the World Health Organization. A State Department official confirmed Washington has submitted a withdrawal notice to the United Nations Secretary General, but it will not go into effect until July 2021 because the withdrawal requires a year's notice, which raises the possibility of a reversal. President Donald Trump has repeatedly criticized the organization, accusing it of bias towards China and its slow response to COVID-19 in Wuhan. The U.S. contributes $400 to $500 million annually to the UN body. Public health experts have warned a suspension of funds will severely damage the organization. A federal U.S. court has denied a request to reconsider a lower court's order to shut and drain a key link of the Dakota Access oil pipeline. The court rejected the emergency plea by pipeline owner consortium Dakota Access LLC, controlled by Energy Transfer. Native American tribes and environmental groups say the emergency plea was designed to rush legal process and deny opponents adequate time to respond. Earlier on Monday, Columbia District Court ordered to stop operations and empty the pipeline pending an environmental review that could take a year. The court said a segment of the pipeline beneath Lake Oahe lacked an adequate environmental impact statement. The court said the U.S. Army Engineers Corps violated laws by allowing the pipeline beneath the lake, which is a source of drinking water for the natives. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva has urged policymakers to use their response to the coronavirus pandemic to tackle climate change. Addressing a virtual conference, she said policies should lay the foundation for a low-carbon recovery that would create millions of jobs. She said the fund is also concerned that the crisis will jeopardize the important development gains of the last years. Last month, the IMF forecast a deeper global recession that initially anticipated. It now anticipates a global GDP contraction of 4.9% this year and a total output loss of $12 trillion through the end of 2021. In Pakistan, the fourth death anniversary of renowned philanthropist and social worker Abdul Sattar Eidhi is being observed across the country. Twitter is all abuzz with tributes pouring in from all over, recalling the acclaimed philanthropist who devoted his life for the poor segments of the society. This report has more.
Sattar Eidhi, the man behind the world's largest volunteer ambulance network, transcended social, ethnic, and religious divisions while serving the humanity. On his fourth death anniversary, people across the region and beyond are remembering him as a real hero. Born to a family of traders in Gujarat, Eidhi arrived in Pakistan in 1947. Known for his ascetic lifestyle, he was often referred to as the richest poor man. For more than 65 years, the Eidhi Foundation has been running clinics and orphanages across Pakistan. Eidhi was honored with several awards for his selfless services in the cause of humanity, both on the national and international levels. By the time of his death, Eidhi was registered as a parent or guardian of nearly 20,000 adopted children, of whom he was an active caretaker. Pakistan's government honored him with a state funeral before he was laid to rest. He was honored with a state funeral before being laid to rest at the Eidhi village near the port city of Karachi.
More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. The U.S. electric car maker Tesla had its best month for South Korea in June, selling 2,827 vehicles. Another 4,000 to 5,000 South Korean customers have the Model 3 on order. Why Koreans are obsessing with this car? Let's take a look at this report.
Tesla Incorporated is having a moment in South Korea, particularly among the tech-savvy professionals who have relatively been unscathed by the pandemic. Kang Sung-mo says he bought a Tesla Model 3 in December, ditching the Hyundai crossover he bought only last summer. Sung-mo says he is not interested in cars, but definitely enjoys the comforts of this new innovative model.
After I press this lever twice, the car will move itself even if I don't put my hands on the steering wheel or foot on the pedals. I can get easily tired when I drive in the countryside for shooting or to Swan, where my parents live, and get stuck in traffic. But the self-driving feature reduces fatigue.
The automaker has additionally benefited from free advertising from a popular Korean actor, Yoo Ah-in. Known for his sense of style, Yoo drove his Tesla Model X SUV to go grocery shopping on a reality show aired last month. This had led to a spike in orders for the vehicle. Another Tesla owner, Kim, says the benefits and emotional appeal of the technologically advanced brand are worth it.
Tesla car owners say the usual petrol engine car is Galaxy and Tesla is an iPhone. Many people use iPhones for emotional reasons. As I've been driving Tesla myself, I can say there are a lot of emotional aspects with Tesla.
Ahead of the BMW 5 Series and the Audi A6, the Model 3 is now the country's number 2 imported vehicle, just behind Mercedes E-Class.
Well, US stocks have risen as investors weighed the latest coronavirus data and its impact on the economic recovery. All three major Wall Street indices are trading higher. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is trading higher by about 0.5%. The S&P 500 also gained about 0.5%. The Nasdaq Composite Index is trading higher by about 1%. The oil prices moved between gains and losses as easing lockdown encouraged investors, while a surprise build in the US inventories pressured prices. Now, the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now with the latest updates. You can follow us on social media at Indus.News.